Well, back like we never left. One of your favorite segments coming your way. All football all the time. We'll have this every Thursday here on Nuanez Now. But this next 3.5 weeks ish, we're going to have this a whole bunch because we're doing NFL over/under win totals and division winners. Brooks Nuanez joining us. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to try to get to just the region in each of the next four of these. Today we're going to do the AFC and the NFC East. Then we'll move on to the AFC and the NFC North, then the AFC and the NFC South, and then the AFC and the NFC West. So these generally take between 30 and 45 minutes of reviews of each of those divisions, and we'll give you all of our picks for all 32 teams in the NFL. We'll give you our divisional picks, and we might have some other leans as well when it comes to our futures bets. But this is definitely one of my favorite things to do when it comes to wagering and sports betting. There is nothing better to me than NFL futures bets because you get to make them in August, and then it gets you a full 20 weeks of full entertainment. You get 5 months of following along with how you bet and how you did. And then at the end, when you get to go to the kiosk and you get to cash in, when this team or that team wins the division or hits the over or hits the under, I love it. So appreciate Sportsbet Montana for their continued support of what we got going on. Get your NFL futures bets in September 9th. That's a Wednesday is when the season opens, a rematch of the Super Bowl, Seattle versus New England, to get things kicked off September 9th. So we will have all football all the time. Today, that's August 20th. August 27th, that's next Thursday. September 3rd, which is the first Thursday of September. And then we'll have our final one on September 8th, which is a Tuesday. That'll be the one sort of anomaly. But most of the time, you'll find all football all the time during the 5 o'clock hour here each Thursday on Nuanez Now. Brooks Nuanez is going to be riding shotgun with us all season long. What's up, man? Thanks for doing it.
Of course, it's back, man. NFL betting. What else do we like more, Colter? Nothing.
It's so funny because people get so excited about football across the board, and that's awesome. We, because of the amount of work that it takes from our coverage of specifically high school and college football, it's a bittersweet phenomenon every year football rolls around. I love going back to Washington Grizzly Stadium, going back to Bobcat Stadium, going back to Missoula County Public Stadium and watching live football. I love it. But it's also like, man, summer's gone. We're going to have to work way more, hang out with our families way less. That's a bummer. There's nothing but excitement for me about the NFL. Like when you tell me I can turn it on and we could just binge out on some football on Sundays, cook some food and hang out with the fam, man, there's just nothing better. I'm just so excited for it.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree. And also, not only from a competitive standpoint, like I've been enjoying watching Hard Knocks. There's some preseason stuff. Quarterback is back on Netflix. Those things are always like nice, fun pieces of content that the NFL does such a good job with. But then it all comes back to betting for me and how much I enjoy that.
No doubt. Thanks to our friends at Sportsbet Montana. You need a place to make your bets. You can find where to wager on the Sportsbet Montana website or get the Sportsbet Montana app as well. That will lead you and teach you how to get to where you need to go to place your wagers, and also making the bets on your phone, scanning the QR code. That certainly is going to help you be super efficient when you're at the machine and also just stay well organized. All right, let's start with the AFC East. To me, the most interesting narrative about the AFC East is that for the better part of 2 decades, the notion was that this was the most shoe-in division in football because the Patriots were just going to win it and everybody else was just going to stink. Ryan Tutel and I, when we first had our daily radio show back in 2017, we used to always joke that the Patriots just get 6 free wins a year because they get to play the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets. Well, now that narrative isn't true. There still is 2 of the worst teams in the league in this division, in the Jets and the Dolphins. But the fact that the Bills have gone from a team that missed the playoffs for more than 20 years in a row to a team that has been the dominant team in this division since Josh Allen really came of age. And then the New England Patriots sort of resurrecting themselves and going from first to worst to back to almost for second last year. So I do think it's a 2-team division. But what do you think of just the way this division has evolved? The fact that there is more than just one good team, it makes it a lot more fun than it was maybe during the Tom Brady era in New England.
Yeah, no doubt. And you had to assume that after Tom Brady and Bill Belichick departed from New England, that there would be a natural dip. They rode so high for so long. They bucked all the trends as far as, the way the parity in the NFL works. Usually it's maybe a 3 or 4 year run if you're lucky. They obviously went on a 20-year run. So you had to assume that there would be some kind of dip. You're not going to find a coaching leadership change that's going to match what those 2 brought to the fold. So that is exactly what happened. But I'd probably say that it lasted for maybe less than it could have. It's probably a 3 or 4 year true dip, maybe 5 in total. But now that they have Mike Vrabel back in the organization, you've seen the Patriots really rise to arguably one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the league. With obviously their Super Bowl appearance last year, you have to assume that the Patriots will come back swinging, if not matching that level, at least getting close to it. So it makes it fun for the division to have more than one team. Obviously, when we were growing up, the Bills were hot when I was young. Made it to all those Super Bowls and 4 Super Bowls. Never won one of them, so they have that monkey on their back still. But in the Josh Allen era, they've arguably been the most consistent team, especially offensively in the NFL. With the rise of Sean McVay over in LA, you might say that the Rams have been a contender there, but I don't think that you could really argue against the Bills being the most consistently dominant offensive team in the NFL. So that's not going to change this season, but I think it is a two-man race with some serious heavyweights at top.
Well, the Bills won this division multiple years in a row, but then the Patriots sort of rose up. And I'm not going to say came out of nowhere, because they do have such great pedigree as a franchise, and certainly when you hire Mike Vrabel, that moves the needle. And we're going to get to the Mike Vrabel potential distractions this upcoming season. But last year, the Patriots were the division champs. They went 14-3 in that division. Then, of course, they ran through the playoffs and went all the way to the Super Bowl. The Bills were 12-5 last year. They were sort of up and down until they found their stride. But then they sort of ran into a brick wall in the playoffs. The Dolphins were 7-10, and a lot of that was colored by the inconsistencies of Tua Tagovailoa, who is no longer there, as well as the devastating injury to Tyreek Hill, which is certainly a career alterer, if not a career ender. And the New York Jets pulled up the rear. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL. They went 3-14. Their anemic offensive performances continued, and I don't know if is Geno Smith an upgrade over Justin Fields. I don't know. We'll get to the Jets in just a little while, but it seems like they still have the same problems that they've had for the last several years. And you have to feel for Aaron Glenn. You wonder if that was a job that's just a career alterer in a bad way, because he had it going in Detroit as the defensive coordinator, and I don't know. I think that the Jets are up against it as much as anybody in the entire NFL. But I want to start with the big narrative of this, the two big narratives of this division. Then we'll get into the over/under win total guesses. For the Bills, Bill Simmons, one of our guys that we listen to his podcasts all the time. He's always doing wrestling analogies. He's anointing the guy who's wearing the championship belt. He does this in the NBA. Like, are you the best player in the NBA? And by his estimation, like in the NBA dating back to the late 1950s when George Mikan was ruling the NBA, there's only been maybe 36 guys that have worn the championship belt, that have really been the best player in the world during that moment in time. Because a lot of times guys wear that belt for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? And sometimes some of the great players ever in the game don't wear the belt as well. Well, he's been doing his quarterback championship belt as well. And for the last couple of years, he has said that quarterback that's wearing the championship belt is Josh Allen. The thing that is unique about Josh Allen is that he is, I believe, one of, if not the only quarterback of the last 50 years in the NFL to sort of definitively be the guy that everybody considers to be the consensus best quarterback in the league, but doesn't have a ring. In fact, he doesn't even have a conference title. So to me, that's the number one narrative in this division is if Josh Allen really is going to be proclaimed as the best quarterback and one of the best players in football, if he's going to be a multi-time MVP, now he's got to show it to me and actually get over the top. He's got to figure out a way to at least get through the conference, let alone get to the Super Bowl, let alone win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, in all of sports, there's always been this top dog mentality where there's always going to be a guy who has to be second. And that's kind of been Josh Allen's narrative. No matter if you think he's the best regular season quarterback, he has not been the best playoff quarterback. And that is a direct result of playing in the same era and head to head with Patrick Mahomes, who is widely considered one of the 2 or 3 most talented quarterbacks of all time, already one of the most 5 accomplished quarterbacks of all time. And that narrative will continue if Mahomes can stay healthy, or if someone else rises to the occasion, like someone like
Sure.
Joe Burrow.
Right.
But I do think that Josh Allen likely holds that belt. When I talk about the Bills having the best offense in the NFL, that's led by one guy and one guy alone. That narrative has always been about Josh Allen. He has plenty of help, but this is not the most talented offense in the NFL. It's not even particularly close. I mean, they've upgraded in some spots. I really like the addition of DJ Moore He's been an up and down receiver in the last 3 or 4 years, kind of an enigma in the locker room, but I do think he has a lot of talent, and I think a guy like Josh Allen is a perfect fit. But overall, it's not the most talented roster in the NFL, but it's driven by Josh Allen. They're good up front. They're able to run the football. But the way that he is so dynamic in the pocket, the way that he can push the ball downfield, one of the strongest arms in the NFL, and obviously just his moxie. I mean, he's that dude. Always has been since he's kind of taken the reins there. So I do think that while you might want to pass that belt around with Mahomes being injured, it's hard to not give it to the last year's MVP and Matt Stafford. But he's coming up on age 40. I'm taking Josh Allen all day, especially in the regular season, as the best quarterback in the NFL.
Well, football all the time, probably presented by Sportsbet Montana. Sportsbet Montana has been very active on social media lately, and they post a lot of their special bets or some of the stuff that they've got coming up when it comes to some of the juice you're going to get, some of the parlay boosts and things like that. So follow them on Instagram at SportsBetMT, at Sportsbet Montana on Facebook. You can also find them at SportsBetMT on X/Twitter. And, of course, you can always visit SportsBetMontana.com. For the Patriots, again, it's hard to say that it was a total surprise. I thought they were going to be way better last year. I don't know if anybody thought they were going to go from 3 wins to 14 wins, though. That's one of the biggest turnarounds in the history of the league. And then they also ran through the playoffs and got to the Super Bowl. That said, Drake May seemed to continue to lose momentum as the regular season wound down and through the playoffs, and then he did not look good in the Super Bowl. That was not uncommon. A lot of quarterbacks did not look good in the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. I guess the Seattle Seahawks, period, let alone in the Super Bowl. But that's the on-the-field concern, is how does Drake May take another step, or does he take a step back? Can they have the same amount of good fortune that went into their 14 wins? But then off the field, of course, there's the gigantic scandal with Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. And you just know that that's going to be something that's asked about every single week. It's already been happening. Every single press conference, Mike Vrabel has gotten a question about his marriage counseling, the status of his marriage, the status of his mental health, et cetera, et cetera. I think he is built for being able to sort of push those distractions to the side. That said, if you start losing, now all of a sudden all the talking heads are saying, this is a reason why you're losing. The scandal is impacting the on-the-field performance. So what do you think of this sort of the narrative around the Patriots?
Well, I could dive into the Mike Vrabel scandal pretty deeply.
We'll leave that for Carolyn.
But I digress. I'll let you guys make your own assumptions on what happened there. I do think that last year was a come out of nowhere season. Like you said, that they have the infrastructure, they have the history. I still think it was as much of a turnaround as I've seen in my lifetime. I can't think of a team that was more kind of down and out without really an identity and no direction that then goes to the Super Bowl the next year with a second-year quarterback like that. That is not a common occurrence. I do think that Mike Vrabel is that kind of leader. I do think that he is someone that can rally the troops and really set a culture and identity quickly, which obviously he's proved to have done so. I do think that the Patriots will face, a little bit of regression this year. There's almost no way they can't. Sure, distractions aside, I mean, this is the NFL. I think that there'll be some reporters that maybe dig at it a little bit, but I think that most people know that this is about the game, right? I mean, there's been enough distraction throughout NFL history that we could write, we could create a whole network on just the off the field stuff, but it's not done like that because everyone knows that it's just kind of about the game. And right or wrong or indifferent, you could get morally, we can have that conversation. It doesn't really matter. It's about football, and the Patriots are going to be able to at least focus on that during the season. I still think there'll be some regression.
Well, who has done a better job of mitigating distractions and scandal over the last 25 years than the New England Patriots? I mean, they've had more than anybody in all of pro sports, whether it's Deflategate or Spygate or Tom Brady's personal life or, Robert Kraft's personal life. I mean, the Patriots have been under the sharpest microscope. They have been the big, bad, evil empire that everybody in the NFL hates. They've been the one that everybody's been tattling on and trying to bring down, and the only thing that could bring them down was having a terrible coach like Gerard Mayo who couldn't figure out how to use his timeouts or substitute his players correctly. Other than that, the Patriots have just been the model franchise in terms of success in the entire NFL. And you're right. It is a come out of nowhere, but it didn't surprise me that much. Again, it did surprise me they won 14 games and won the conference. But to go from I totally thought they'd go from 3 wins to either a fringe or surefire playoff team the moment they hired Mike Vrabel. Like, I just thought that was going to be the thing that put him over the top, because he is, first of all, he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. He has been. But second of all, he's just from that same mold. Like, he comes from the Patriots. He knows the ways of the dynasty. So I just thought that was going to be a slam dunk. But, I mean, what do you think of – I mean, there's always the concept of the Super Bowl hangover, and then you add in the distractions, and you add in the fact that Drake May sort of peaked and then fell down before the season was over last year. So just from an on-the-field perspective, what makes you think that the Patriots will maybe regress from their 14-3 record a year ago?
Well, I don't want this to be a hot take, because I haven't really been able to evaluate a guy like Drake May, who I've only watched play probably 25 games. His rookie year, I didn't watch a ton of it. And I mean, I don't want this to be a hot take. I don't know if I think Drake May is a top 5 quarterback. I think there's a lot of people.
That's not a hot take. He's not.
But there's a lot of people out there that think that Drake May is the best thrower of the deep ball in the NFL, that he is one of the 5 most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. And those are all things that I don't know if those are true.
Man.
I think that Drake May is a really good player. I just think
he's a pretty good player.
To get 14 wins, you got to be on a heater with a lot of talent.
Yep.
You got to assume that 3 or 4 of those wins are just going to go the other way. Those one-score wins, and you end up being at 10 or 11. I mean, 14 was that the most wins in the league last year?
Yeah, tied for the best record in the NFL.
Yeah, so I mean, you just have to assume you're just not going to win 14 games back to back.
Seahawks and Patriots are the 2 14-win teams a year ago.
Yeah, but you can win 12 like the Bills. You can win, 11 year in, year out. Hard to win 14, especially with a young quarterback who's still growing. We'll see offensively with the addition of A.J. Brown. You can't overlook it. While he's been really tough in the locker room, tough in the media, tough with his teammates, he's a really talented guy. And at his peak, he is a go-getter. I mean, he's a dude that can play at all 3 levels. He can play on the outside in a big way. And I think if Drake May and the perception of him being an excellent deep ball thrower is true, then I think that A.J. Brown's a huge addition when it comes to that.
Yeah, and you also wonder, I mean, this is a complete tangent, but you also wonder if some of the stuff that was being reported on about A.J. Brown being a malcontent, being a locker room problem, all that stuff was actually fabricated by this whole scandal involving Diana Rossini in an effort to get A.J. Brown to the Patriots. But that's a whole different conversation for a whole different day.
No, that's the main point, though. That's the folks to take away. You can talk about all of the pictures and the tabloids, and that is the only issue when it comes to the NFL is if there was tampering in that trade.
If Diana Rossini is fabricating narratives that then force or at least influence the decision of the Philadelphia Eagles to trade A.J. Brown to the Patriots, that is bad. We'll leave it at that. I don't know how much we need to say about the Dolphins and the Jets. The Dolphins have a new head coach in Jeff Hartley, former defensive coordinator for the Packers. They brought in Malik Willis, who showed flashes last year for the Packers at quarterback. But, I mean, I don't know anybody that thinks he's a top 25 quarterback. I mean, I think he probably is good enough to get a chance to start, but he's probably good enough to get a chance to start for one of the 5 worst teams in the league. I think that's what the Dolphins are just going to be, especially if Tyreek Hill can't make it back. They traded Jalen Waddle to the Broncos, so that's a loss on their offense. They still have A-Chain at running back, but I don't know how explosive he can be if he doesn't have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle flanking him. And then defensively, I think that they're just a total coin flip, and I just think Miami is a directionless team right now. If you're the Jets, I think it's even worse because the Jets were pretty good on defense, and they let a lot of those guys walk and or traded them. Their centerpiece, Quinnen Williams, is now in Dallas, so that is a former top 3 pick that's on out. You can't build around that anymore. And then on offense, I mean, you want to believe Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are up-and-coming young good players, but I had them both in fantasy the last couple of years, and they've been terrible because the Jets just haven't scored any points. Geno Smith might be an upgrade over Justin Fields. I'm not really sure. But I just think in terms of what the future might hold, I think the Jets are actually the team that is in the worst shape of anybody in the entire NFL. Because even the Cleveland Browns could talk themselves into Deshaun Watson making a comeback or Shadur Sanders figuring it out someday. Even the Raiders could figure out a way to talk themselves into that there's a bridge between Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza. But I just don't know the Jets having a stopgap that's Geno Smith, but no young guy behind him. I just think the Jets are the most up a creek of any franchise in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's these 2 teams, honestly, that are the 2 that are up against it. I mean, the Raiders, like you say, you have Fernando Mendoza, which at least is a beacon of hope. And you have Ashton Genty from last year, running back from Boise State, who, again, a beacon of hope. You still keep Max Crosby in the building. So the Raiders have, I mean, some semblance of an identity. The Dolphins and the Jets do not. I think the Jets, they probably have more talent when it comes to Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Signed Demario Davis and Minka Fitzpatrick on defense, two, veterans that at least establish some leadership. Up front, they draft David Bailey with the second overall pick out of Texas Tech, which I actually thought, it's a coin flip there with him and Arvell Reese, the guy the edge that went to the Giants. So I still think David Bailey's a solid player, a good draft pick. So I just named 4, 5, 6 guys that are guys that can be impactful players. In the NFL, you need about 10 at least, if not more. So they're short when it comes to that. And some of those guys like Fitzpatrick and Davis I mentioned are both veterans in the sense of, I mean that they're old. They're getting old, which is not necessarily a bright spot, but still leadership. When you look at the Dolphins roster, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Colter. It's the bleakest roster in the NFL. I mean, there are guys across the board at multiple positions that I don't even know who they are, which is not really something that's in my wheelhouse because I know the roster's pretty well in and out. I like the second round pick they took, Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech linebacker. He's great, but you're talking about a second round draft pick who's going to have to start at Mike as a rookie. I think these two teams are both going to vie for the number 1 pick overall, if they have that opportunity. As far as we're talking about 3, 4, 5 wins at best.
And this is going to happen. We're going to go too long on everything, but that's okay. We have some time to work with here. So let's get into the over-under win totals for the AFC East. Then we'll give you a little bit of a preview of the NFC East, and then we'll get the over-under win totals for you in the 5:30 segment here on Nuanez Now. So do you want to start at the bottom or do you want to start at the top?
Well, I guess let's start at the bottom.
Okay, so I think the Dolphins are actually probably going to be the team that is predicted to finish last in this division behind even the Jets. And I just slightly think that's because Geno Smith's a little bit more of a proven commodity than Malik Willis, even though I think Geno Smith's best days are behind him. I think this can be one of the lowest over-under win totals in the league. I think that the Dolphins are going to come in at 4.5 wins. 5.5. I'm going to say 5.5 for the Dolphins coming into 2026.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go lower. I'm going to say at least 4.5. This might be the lowest win total in the league, and it might be 3.5.
Man, okay. So do we want to reveal them right here? Or do we want to just check our work at the end?
Let's go through the division. Then I have a tab that I can pull up here. That will show them to us.
Okay, New York Jets I think are at 5.5. I'm saying Dolphins 4.5, Jets 5.5.
Okay, I'm gonna say Dolphins 3.5 and Jets 4.5.
Okay, I think both these teams are going to be very bad. I don't know how they're going to. I don't think they're going to win a division game except for when they play each other.
Right. I mean, there's a win each. If you split right there, I mean, there's one win. But it's going to be really hard. We always talk about this, Colter. These teams are going to win games at some point, and they'll probably even beat a good team. But I just don't know how they're going to put together a bunch of them.
I think that the Patriots are probably going to be the second pick to win this division, and I think that the book will have them regressing quite a bit from their 14 wins a year ago. But I think they'll still have them right there as a playoff team. I'm going to say 10.5 for the Patriots.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to say the same. I'm going to say 10.5. You got to remember that in this over-under game here, that there's really rarely ever a team that's over 11.5. The highest win total will be 11.5 in the NFL. There's no way that there's a 12.5 out there. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, even I think the highest we've ever seen is a 12.5. One time for the Ravens and one time for the
Ravens
Chiefs.
Had one, but it's 10.5 is going to be about as high as it gets.
Ravens and Chiefs at 12.5 is the highest that we've seen, but usually the teams that are predicted to be the best in the NFL are right there at 11.5.
Correct, and it might be 1 maybe, but 10.5 is going to be towards the top, which is I would say Patriots 10.5, and I'm going to say Bills. I'm going to give them the edge and say 11.5, which would put them as the best team in the league, arguably.
I agree with that. I think the Bills will be right there at 11.5 as well. All right, let's do it quickly. Then we set the lines, and then let's reveal the lines, and then we'll pick against what the actual line is. So give me the.
So we were close. Dolphins is 4.5. Jets.
Okay.
Jets is 5.5, and then Patriots and Bills are both 10.5.
Okay, so we were one off. We gave too little credit on the bottom end. We got the Patriots right, and we were one short on we had the Bills one too high.
Yep, and you got the Jets one there. I was a game low on both
Okay.
those bottom ones, but that's okay. I mean, those that for me gives me all the confidence in the world to take the under on both the Dolphins and the Jets. Like that's easy for me. Like the Jets are going to win 5 games. That sounds great.
Book it. I got the under for both those teams as well. And then I think that I'm going to take the over for the Patriots. I do think that they will regress from 14 wins, but I think they'll be right. I think 11 is a really good number. 11-6, I think is a really good number for the Patriots. And then I'm going to take the over for the Bills as well. I think 12-5 like they were a year ago is kind of right where I would have Buffalo. So I'm taking the over for the top 2 teams, the under for the bottom 2 teams.
Yeah, I'm going to be right there with you. And so last year, for our listeners here, we were we went about 500 on our picks, and we had head-to-heads where we were different on 8 different things. So we're across the board. We're in agreeal, over on the 2 favorites and under on the 2 dogs.
All right, Nuanez Now August on ESPN Radio. In the name of keeping the producers happy and staying on time, we'll take a quick break, come back, and break down the NFC East. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. It's 129 ESPN Radio. Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio coming to you live from the Grizzly Disposal Studio. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, the only Bears that should be in your garbage. Our NFL over-under win totals and discussions continue. We'll dive into the NFC East now. The Philadelphia Eagles were the champion of the NFC East a year ago with an 11-6 record. They were the only team that had a winning record in the division. The Cowboys finished 7-9. The Commanders, influenced heavily by Jaden Daniels' elbow injury, finished 5-12. And the New York Giants, who were riddled by injury basically from start to finish and also just had a pretty lackluster roster, they finished 4-13. What would you say is the main narrative, Brooks, in this division, which is always one of the fiercest and most competitive divisions in the NFL?
Yeah, we like to call this one America's division. This is probably the most, classic rivalries. We love the NFC North because that's teams that we've always followed, but this is a division that is going to have a ton of national TV games, and I think that the narrative is pretty straightforward. Is that do the Cowboys have it? Are the Cowboys back? Are the Cowboys going to go ahead and steal this division back from the Eagles, who have had it for the last handful of years? The Commanders and Giants, I'm not sure about either of those teams, but I do think that if the Cowboys have it, like people are talking about, which is, imagine that, people are talking about the Cowboys and they think they're good. Like, this has been my entire life. I'll believe it when I see it, but I think that is the narrative of, we'll see if the Eagles can hang on and if the Cowboys can go steal it.
Here's a great statistic for you when it comes to this division. The Philadelphia Eagles have won this division back-to-back years.
Yep.
That is the first time that anybody has repeated as NFC East champs since the Eagles did it way back in 2002 through 2004 when Marty Mornhinweg was the quarterback's coach and Donovan McNabb was the quarterback. So it's been more than 20 years since there's been repeat champions. A new champion year in and year out since 2004. And it's basically just gone in rotation between the Giants, the Eagles, and the Cowboys, with Washington having breakthroughs in 2012 and 2015. But other than that, it's been the other 3 teams that have been rotating around. To me, I think the other narrative in this division is twofold. One, can Jaden Daniels get healthy? And 2, was Jaden Daniels' rookie year where the Commanders went 12-5, was that a fluke, or is that something they can get back to? Because I think a lot of people just want a baseline point towards the Commanders falling off a cliff last year because Daniels got hurt. But I also think the roster fell off a cliff. They were the oldest roster in the NFL 2 years ago. A lot of those guys are past their best days now. And so I just wonder where they're at with Dan Quinn and where they're at as a franchise. Is it all about Jaden Daniels, or was maybe the rookie year with Jaden Daniels when they won some of the craziest games in NFL history that year. They had the game against the Bears where they won on the Hail Mary in overtime. Like, they stole a couple wins, and then it sort of came back to earth in the playoffs. So where are you at? Is Washington a real deal, or was maybe 2 years ago a fluke for the Commanders?
So this is probably, I'm going to put them in a basket of teams that's probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 teams I just don't believe in, really at all. I think a fluke would be an easy way to say it. In the NFL, you got to win games. Like, you can't get lucky. I mean, you can definitely maybe steal 1 or 2. So I do think that there is something here with Jaden Daniels. We'll see if he can get healthy. I like that they signed Stephon Diggs. I think that's a nice addition to that receiving core, kind of takes some pressure off Terry McLaurin. But I don't love what they have up front on offense. Don't like the backfield really at all. I don't think they have anything in the run game. We'll see about their first overall pick with Sonny Styles, linebacker from Ohio State. But for me, it's like he's a couple years out. He's more of a developmental guy. He's kind of a tweener. They're going to play him at Mike. He looks the part. I get all that. But on defense, there's nothing that really pops for me. This is a team that I think is in a territory of being 500 at best. And I think that if they don't, get a couple here or there, that they're a team that's looking more like a 6-7 win team to me.
And then obviously the Eagles have an interesting narrative as well because they've had so much unrest, and so much of that just comes from the market that they're in, the coach that they have, the sort of polarizing personalities that exist on that team. I think the offensive line is still good, but not nearly the dominant force that it was a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley isn't getting any younger, even though he's still one of the premier offensive players in the league. They traded A.J. Brown, which that could be a double-edged sword. You got to replace the production, but you also might get rid of the headache. And then there's just the everlasting debate about Jalen Hurts. Is he actually good, or is he a guy that was a quarterback on multiple Super Bowl teams that were just really stacked teams? All of the questions for the Eagles, I think, reside on the offensive side, because I think their defense remains stacked. I think they got one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. But Philadelphia's had so many ups and downs, right? I mean, they had a stinker of all stinkers in the playoffs against the Bucs a couple years ago, completely embarrassed, got ran off the field. Then they turn around and win the Super Bowl. And then last year they were sort of up and down all over the place again. So it just seems like they have a hard time honing consistency, but when the peaks, they are definitely one of the premier franchises in the NFL. What are your thoughts just on Philly overall?
I think Philly's going to look a lot like they did last year. I agree that getting rid of A.J. Brown's probably a relief in the sense of he wasn't producing. I mean, there was times he went, I think, 3 weeks in a row with 0 catches. So he was a guy that was just becoming more of a headache than anything. They draft Malik Lemon in the first round, the UFC receiver from USC, who I like. I don't think is an absolute game changer. I think that this team, it's all about defense, right? This team is going to win 8, 9, 10 games on defense alone. If the offense clicks at any point during the season, you could look at a 10-plus win team. The coaching staff, it's just a different style. Nick Sirianni rubs people the wrong way. He rubs me the wrong way. He's got a unique style to him. He's one of those guys that doesn't really coach one side of the ball. He's not an offensive guy. He's not a defensive guy. He's just a guy. And he's just a motivator. He's just a guy that's kind of mixing it up with people and creating the energy, which is unique. There's not a ton of those out there in the NFL. There are some, but not a ton. So I think the Eagles, it's a little bit of a rinse and repeat situation for me. Jalen Hurts, I love him as a guy. I think he's a flossy player. I enjoy his style. But I don't know if he's elite at all. I think he's maybe a borderline top 10 quarterback, but maybe right on the edge there. So offensively, we'll see. Saquon Barkley is going to, at some point, start to regress a little bit. I mean, I think he did a little bit last year. He's not getting any younger, as you mentioned. So I think it's team's all about defense, and that defense is good enough for close to 10 wins.
Would you rather have – we don't have to do the whole quarterback game, but Ryan Tutel and I were debating this earlier this week. Put these guys in order.
I love this game.
Put these guys in order. Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold.
Wow. Amazing. You want me to put them in order of just pure talent?
Who would you rather have?
Who would you rather have on a good team?
Yeah.
Let's just put them on. Let's say that they're all on the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts is last.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Then I would say Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold. And so I would say Jared Goff's number 1. But Sam Darnold has always had the talent. He's gotten such bad situations. Everything that Sam Darnold's done in the last year is the least surprising thing in the world to me.
I mean, when you're watching Hard Knocks, you're like, wait, that guy's not the best quarterback in the league? Like, if you didn't know anything else and you just watched him on Hard Knocks, you would – well, I know they make everybody look great on Hard Knocks or whatever, but they have the whole segment about his spin rate. Like, he literally – this is not like an opinion. This is a fact. He throws the best and most tightly spun ball in football.
Almost times 2.
Times 2. Like, it's not even close. Like, his arm strength and his spiral are second to none, literally. So
and guess what? 15 years ago, he was 6'5", the number one player in the country, and he was doing it at USC, and he did it for years. And then he went to the Jets, and it was the worst
Yeah.
situation ever. It's like,
I mean,
I'm just not surprised.
one of the most memorable FBS games I can remember watching is watching Sam Darnold go absolutely ballistic as a 19-year-old redshirt freshman for USC against Penn State in the Rose Bowl. And it was an all-time classic game, and USC ended up pulling it out late. They won like 49-43 or something like that. And at that exact moment, I'm looking at this 19-year-old kid. I'm like, that dude is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the world already. And then he was drafted like that, and then you're right. He went and had to toil forever and ever and ever. Anyways, that's all to say that I think Jalen Hurts he's an interesting case study because I agree with you. I think his personality is one that inspires a team. I think he's a great leader. I think he's got a high football IQ, but I also think he's limited in what you can actually do with him. Limited compared to the top 10 or 12 guys that are his contemporaries. I think he's better than most of the mid to lower guys. I just don't know where he's at in terms of the top guys.
He's better than most of the mid and lower guys, but his arm isn't.
Yes, right.
He's got a bottom 10 arm.
Well, that's the thing is with him and Lamar Jackson specifically, the moment they lose one step is the moment that they are no longer.
But Lamar can put it on a rope. I mean, Jalen Hurts can throw a moon ball, and he's plenty accurate, but he doesn't have a cannon. And
right.
I mean, we're talking about guys we're comparing him to with the best arms in NFL history. We're talking about guys that are just like absolute gunslingers. So it's not necessarily a fair comparison. I think Jalen Hurts is an awesome quarterback. I would take him in a situation with a defense like this all day. This is the quarterback I want with this defense.
Yes, right.
I want him or Brock Purdy or like with this kind of defense. I don't want the gunslinger. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a perfect fit. But as far as talent goes, I mean, I think Jalen Hurts can get you to a Super Bowl and win it. So what else do you really need to know?
Brooks Nuanez all football all the time, probably presented by Sportsbet Montana. Sportsbet Montana has all sorts of cool promotions going on here in the preseason leading up to the NFL. Be sure to follow them on Instagram and on Facebook and on X. And also be sure to check out the special bets section because we will have special bets for you all football season long. All you got to do is either type in Nuanez, Nuanez, on your app, or just click on over the special bets when you're on the kiosk. Appreciate Sportsbet Montana for their continued support. Okay, last narrative question, then we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll guess and pick the over-under win totals for the NFC East. John Harbaugh, a resurrection. He's in Baltimore for 14 years. Plenty of success, tons of playoff appearances, and, of course, a Super Bowl more than a decade ago. He comes in, though, to a franchise that once was one of the proud franchises in the NFL. They've been toiling and drowning for quite some time. But I know people that follow the Giants want to believe that Jackson Dart is the next guy and that he's going to be the savior for the franchise. What do you make of the fact that Harbaugh comes in there as a guy with a lofty resume, but a guy that had sort of a sour exit in Baltimore? Can John Harbaugh fix the New York Giants?
Overall, yes. This year, they may be another year away. I like a lot of the improvements they've made to the roster just across the board. I don't know if Jackson Dart can play a winning brand of football. And that's not to say it won't be exciting. That's not to say that he's not going to have juice and get wins.
Did you see him in the preseason the other night?
Yeah.
Like what he was doing is what is the thing that's going to hold him back? Like he's trying to do the Tim Tebow thing where he like runs in the open field and lowers his shoulder and tries to inspire his team. We got knocked the F out. Like he was in the tent and Harbaugh's like going over to him like, bro, this is the preseason. You cannot do this. Like we have to have you upright. And that's just something he's going to have to learn. If he doesn't learn, he's going to have to learn the hard way.
Totally. And I just don't think he will. Come on, dude. He's pretty much proven it. Like you said, this is the preseason after he has a rookie season where everyone's like, yo, you can't do this. You're going to die. The first chance he gets, he does it. So it's like, I don't know where. I mean, John Harbaugh is the kind of guy that can inspire like learning this kind of stuff, but we'll see. They added a lot of guys on defense. I think defensively, this is going to be a pretty nasty team. I mean, Tremont Edmonds is a sweet linebacker coming over from Buffalo. DJ Reader from Detroit. He was on Detroit recently, but he's been on the Bengals before. He's another good inside guy. And Shelby Harris from Cleveland is another good player. I mean, great inside player at times. I mean, I think he's one of the, 7 or 8 best tackles in the league. And you're going to put him in that strong end in the 3-4. Then I love Abdul Carter. And then, as I already mentioned, Avril Reese is a sweet player. I think he's an awesome draft pick for them. So overall, defensively, I think they're awesome, and they also added Patrick Ricard, the Ravens fullback, who's widely considered the best fullback of his generation. He's been first team All Pro, handful of years in a row. So you get Cam Scadabo back. You have Jackson Dart and Patrick Richard on first down. I mean, talk about cran eaters, dude. Like this is a backfield that they're going to get 4 yards on first down. I promise you. So that'll at least give Jackson Dart something to work with. Can Scadabo or Dart stay healthy? Remains to be seen. We'll guess these over-unders. I do think this is probably a defense that can get manufacture at least five wins, 6 wins, just defensively alone.
All football all the time, probably presented by Sportsbet about 10. Take a break, come back, give you the guesses for the over-under win totals for the NFC East. Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio. Colter, Nuanez, Brooks, Nuanez. How could we forget? We have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, too. We're breaking down the NFC East. If you missed anything in the show so far, you can always find it on the podcast. All second hour, we've been doing over-under win totals and narratives around the AFC East and the NFC East. We went through 7 of the 8 teams so far. We talked about the Cowboys, and can the Cowboys be back in a big way? And I think that the Cowboys just got to find some semblance of figuring out how to play defense. The offensive side has been far from the Cowboys' worries. Yeah, I think Dak Prescott remains one of the most polarizing guys in the NFL because I think you love him on your fantasy team, but can he actually win big games? We'll see. And, of course, there's all that comes with the Cowboys, just being on the Cowboys. They're going to lead the news always. They remain, quote-unquote, America's team, although I do think that's dissipated a little bit. But the lights are brighter in Dallas, and they are brighter when you're the Cowboys quarterback, so I think a lot of that influences the way Dak Prescott is compartmentalized. But, I mean, I would say that Dallas is one of the most polar. I mean, I think that he is one of the most polarizing guys in the NFL, and I don't know where to fit him into how I think of this stuff. But this has been what the Cowboys narrative, like you said, for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, Dak is an amazing regular season quarterback. There's just no two ways about it. I mean, Dak's an awesome player. He's kind of proven that he can't win in the playoffs and win big games. I mean, it's just he's got that kindness about him. He's got that. I don't know if he's got that true dog in him, and that's hard to say when you're not in the locker room with him, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Dak, don't get me wrong. He's a sweet competitor. Awesome regular season quarterback. This team, I still just feel like there's got to be overblown hype here. I mean, I like what they have on defense. Like you mentioned, I mean, Quinnen Williams coming over from the Jets he's one of the best inside guys in the league. And then you also get Kenny Clark in the Micah Parsons trade from Green Bay. I mean, those two guys playing tackle on the inside is the best combo in the league as far as the 2 inside guys go. That's the real deal. They also got Rashawn Gary from Green Bay. So that front there is sweet. Back end, we'll see. I mean, you draft Caleb Downs, the star from Ohio State, coming over from Alabama. He's an awesome player. There's no 2 ways about that. I think he'll be an impact player day one. He always was going to be. He's just that kind of prospect. And offensively, I mean, they'll churn yards. Dak, that's what he does. I just don't know if this. I can't wait to see the over/under because in my head, I think it's probably low compared to what it is. But we always got to remember that these lines are set by the public. They're set by the way that people are wagering, not necessarily what the book thinks overall, but they set a line, and then the line oftentimes gets raised by a public team like the Cowboys. So I might be a little lower than the book will actually say.
All football all the time, probably presented by Sportsbet Montana. Brooks Nuanez joining us. All right, so let's go through the win totals, and let's start at the bottom. I think the Giants will be the team that's picked to finish 4th in this division. The Giants won 4 games a year ago. I do think the Giants will be a little bit better. I think John Harbaugh will make a difference. I think Jackson Dart, I don't know. I don't believe that he will be as good as a lot of people think he's going to be, but I think he's fine. Like, I think he's solid. Like, I'd rather have him than some of the other quarterback situations in the NFL right now. So I think the Giants will take a little bit of a jump. I'm going to put the Giants over under at 6.5.
Yeah, I think the only thing I agree with you across the board there, except that I think that the Giants are better than the Commanders. I don't know if the book will say that, but I think that personally I would put the Commanders below them. So I'm going to put the Giants. I like that number, but I'll try to be a little different. So I'm going to guess 7.5.
Okay.
No, I like 6.5. I don't think they're going to win 8 games. So I like.
Yeah.
6.5.
7.5 would mean that they'd go 8-9, and I think that's too big of a jump.
I think so too. So I like.
I think they're like a 6-11, 7-10 type of team.
I'm right there with you.
I think that the Commanders are too, though. I'm going to put the Commanders at 6.5 as well. I think that they're like a 7-10 team.
Agreed. I would have put them at 6.5 and the Giants at 7.5, but I'm going to put them both at 6.5. I agree with you.
Okay. Philly. I think Philly's right in that same tier as Buffalo and New England. I probably would have said 11.5, but then when I saw that when we guessed and then we had the Bills at 11.5, and then they ended up being 10.5, I think that's where the Eagles are at. I think the Eagles will be right there at 10.5 among the better teams in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I have too, is 10.5. I think that there'll be probably 6 teams that are 10.5, and the Eagles are going to be one of them.
Yep. And then I think that the Cowboys, again, you got to always remember that this is influenced by the public. If I was telling you,
I would have guessed 7.5 off the top.
If I was telling you what I think the Cowboys should be, I would have said 7.5. If I'm guessing what I think the line is, I think it's 9.5. Because I think there's a bunch of idiots that are going to bet on the Cowboys.
That is ludicrous.
Bro, there's tens of millions of people that think Dak Prescott's one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league. It's tens of millions. Because they play fantasy football, and he throws for a bunch of yards.
Okay, well, I'll take the under, so if that's the case.
I'm guessing Dallas 9.5. Is that where you got it? Are you guessing 7.5?
No, I'll guess 8.5. I'll split it. I would have guessed 7.5 if you asked me cold.
All right. Sounds good. Well, okay, let's reveal them then. Let's go through what the book has them at. We'll make our picks. We only have about 2.5 minutes left here.
Right. Let me grab it. So we have, wow, the Commanders and the Giants are both 7.5. That's
under, both of them.
Ludicrous. Under for me for both as well.
Yep.
Cowboys are 9.5. You're right. That's
under. Bet of the year. Hammer it.
Under, because they can win 9. They can go 9.
That's the thing. That's the thing, though. Then the Cowboys, this is what the Cowboys will do, though. They'll go win 10 games and then just get smacked in the playoffs.
I know, 10-7.
Yeah.
But they can go 9-8 and you can still win that bet. That's
totally. And that's the thing is, if they do well, they could win 10 or 11 games, and then they'll get smacked in the playoffs because that's just what happens for 30 years straight. Or if they go under, then they'll just unravel because the spotlight will be too much, and they'll do what they did last year. They'll go 7-9-1 and not even be close to the playoffs.
That is really tough, man. I am so torn on that. I have to rethink that. I should have thought more before we talked. That's a really tough line for me because, again, I thought I was going to be low, but then you always have to factor in that 17th game, which is important.
Yes.
Okay, Eagles are 10.5.
Yeah, nailed that.
And I like the over on that one.
Okay. I'm taking the over. I'm taking the under on Dallas. Taking the under on Washington. I'm taking the under on New York.
Okay. Yeah, I got under on the bottom two, over on the Eagles. I'm going to have to reevaluate and really think. I'm going to take the under for now on the Cowboys.
Nuanez Now tonight, ESPN Radio. Brooks Nuanez joins us every Thursday during the 5 o'clock hour, all football all the time. Appreciate you for hanging, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. NFL's back, baby. See you then. Tonight, ESPN Radio. Appreciate Brooks Nuanez for all the time he spent with us this week, and also thanks to you so much for listening. Nuanez Now, fun show. If you miss seeing it, you can always find it on the podcast, which is available on all your various podcast hosting platforms. We talked to Eli Gilman, Dylan Payne, and Dom Dasty from the Grizz, Adam Jones from the Bobcats, Ari Gray from Butte High School Football, and we gave you previews about the AFC and the NFC East, all of it on the pod, which is available on all your various podcast hosting platforms. Please rate, review, subscribe. Fun show Friday. Andre Patterson will make his debut. We've talked with Andre about his career a couple times, but now we're going to talk to him about everything else that's going on in the NFL. We'll certainly have some more story time, but also some contemporary conversation as well. Carol, the Chicken Doesn't Know Sports, will also join us. And please be sure to remember to mark it down on your calendars. 8 a.m. on Monday, the re-debut of Tutel Nuanez and the first morning show ever here at ESPN MT. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll see you Monday at 8 a.m. In the meantime, have a great Thursday evening and be good.